Rin lived on a lonely outpost that circled a cold, barren planet. The outpost was not much more than metal walls, humming machines, and long silent corridors. He had been sent there for routine research, but most days felt the same, empty, quiet, and endless. Sometimes Rin stared out the viewing glass, watching the dead planet below, its surface covered in dust storms. Other times he listened to old recordings from Earth just to remind himself of laughter and music. Life in space was heavy with silence. One day, as Rin checked the long-range sensors, a strange signal appeared. It was faint, weak, almost lost in the background of stars. At first, Rin thought it was just static. But then he saw it clearly, a ship, drifting without power, floating like a ghost. Curiosity rose inside him. A ship so far from normal routes meant something had gone wrong. He quickly adjusted the scanners. The vessel was damaged, hull broken, systems dark. It looked ancient and unfamiliar. It was no human design. Rin's heart beat faster. Could it be alien? He had heard stories of other species out there, but he never thought he would see one himself. Alone and restless, Rin decided to act. He guided his small shuttle toward the drifting vessel. As he got closer, the sight made him pause. The ship was carved with strange patterns, curves that glowed faintly like fading stars. It seemed less built and more like something grown. Part of him felt fear. Another part felt wonder. He docked carefully, entered through a broken hatch, and stepped into silence. The air smelled faintly of metal and dust. Dim lights flickered. His boots echoed on the floor. He held his lamp high and searched. Then he found her. She lay on the floor of a ruined chamber, her body still, her breathing shallow. She wore clothes unlike anything Rin had seen before, layers of silver fabric, torn and stained. Her skin was pale with a soft tone, her hair dark and long, spread around her like a river. Even unconscious, she carried a sense of grace, as if she were someone important. Rin knelt beside her. He checked quickly. She was alive, though weak. He had little training, but he knew enough to help. Carefully, he lifted her into his arms and carried her back to his shuttle. On the way back to the outpost, Rin kept looking at her. She did not look dangerous. She looked fragile, lost, and far from home. Back inside his outpost, he laid her on the bed in the med room. He used his limited supplies: oxygen feed, healing patches, nutrient fluids. He worked with clumsy hands but steady heart. Slowly, color returned to her face. Her breathing grew stronger. Hours passed. Finally, her eyes opened. They were bright, filled with strange depth, like distant stars. She looked around with confusion, then focused on Rin. For a moment, silence hung between them. "You are human," she whispered, her voice soft but clear. Rin almost froze. She spoke his language, though with a faint, melodic accent. "Yes. You're safe now. I found your ship. It was damaged." She tried to sit up, but her strength failed. Rin helped her lean against the bed. "My name is Rin," he said gently. "What is yours?" She looked at him for a long moment before answering. "Alira," she said. Her voice carried both pride and sadness. "Alira," Rin repeated softly, the name unfamiliar yet beautiful on his tongue. She studied him, her eyes sharp despite her weakness. "Why did you help me?" Rin blinked, surprised at the question. "Because you needed it. Out here, alone, no one should be left to die." For a moment, she simply watched him. Then, a faint smile touched her lips. "Strange. Humans are still, as I was told, reckless, but kind." Rin tilted his head. "You've heard of humans before." Her eyes grew distant. "Yes. My people speak of your kind, but I did not expect to meet one, not here." He wanted to ask more, but he could see exhaustion pulling her down again. "You should rest," he said. She nodded slightly, closing her eyes. Before sleep claimed her, she whispered something faint. Rin caught only a few words, the last, "hunted, must survive." Rin frowned, unsure what she meant. But he knew one thing for certain: this was no ordinary traveler. She was someone important, someone running from danger. As she slept, Rin sat nearby, watching over her. His outpost, once so empty, now held a mystery far greater than any research mission. He did not know who hunted her or why she had been drifting in the dark. But deep inside, he felt something he had not felt in years: purpose. He looked at her resting face, peaceful for the moment. She seemed both strong and vulnerable, like a flame in the wind. Rin knew he could walk away, call for others, and return to his quiet life. But his heart told him something else. This meeting was not chance. It was the beginning of something far greater. And though he could not explain why, Rin felt that his life and perhaps the fate of many others had just changed forever. When Alira awoke again, many hours had passed. Her breathing was steady now, her strength slowly returning. She looked around the small med-room, its walls plain and human-made. It was nothing like the grand halls of her people. Yet here, in this simple outpost, she felt safer than she had in months. Rin entered carrying a tray of food. It was simple dried fruits, protein cubes, and water. He placed it beside her. "You should eat. Your body needs energy." Alira studied the food with hesitation, then looked at Rin. "You do not even know who I am, yet you give me your supplies. Why?" Rin gave a small shrug. "Because you're alive. That's reason enough." For a moment, she was silent. Then she touched one of the protein cubes and took a careful bite. The taste was strange to her, but she forced herself to eat. When she had eaten enough, she spoke again. "My name, as I told you, is Alira. I am, or I was, a princess of the House of Salar." The word princess made Rin blink. He had guessed she was important, but to hear it spoken so simply made his chest tighten. "A princess? That means someone must be searching for you." Alira's eyes grew darker. "Yes. But not to save me. To destroy me." Rin leaned forward, listening carefully. "My people," she continued, "were once rulers of many worlds. But another empire rose against us. They feared our line, feared what we stood for. They struck quickly, and one by one, our cities fell. My family, all gone." Her voice trembled slightly, but she steadied it. "I am the last. They hunt me so that no one will ever claim my name again." Rin felt a cold weight in his chest. He had thought she was simply lost. Now he realized she was a target in a war far larger than anything he had known. "Then your ship," he began. "Attacked," she said. "I fled with a few loyal guards. They died protecting me. I barely escaped. My vessel drifted for days until you found me." Silence filled the room for a moment. Rin's mind turned quickly. If what she said was true, then the ones chasing her might come here, to this outpost. And if they did, they would not leave witnesses. "You cannot stay here long," Rin said finally. "If they're searching, they'll find this place." Alira nodded slowly. "I know. But where else can I go? I have no ship now, no allies left." Rin looked down at his hands. He had lived quietly for so long, alone with his machines and empty halls. He had never thought about war, or empires, or hunted princesses. But now she sat in front of him, fragile yet proud, asking nothing yet carrying everything. He met her eyes. "Then I'll help you." Her expression softened with surprise. "You would risk yourself for me? You owe me nothing." Rin gave a small smile. "Maybe not. But I couldn't just walk away. Besides, humans don't do well with silence. We like to fight for something, even if it's impossible. For the first time, Alira laughed, a quiet sound, but real. It startled even her. "You are reckless indeed," she said. "But perhaps I need someone like that." At that moment, the outpost alarms began to ring. A sharp red light flashed across the room. Rin jumped to his feet and hurried to the control screen. His heart sank. Enemy patrols. 3 ships, moving slowly through the system, scanning. Their signatures matched no human design. "They're here," Rin whispered. Alira's face grew pale, but she did not panic. "They will search every rock, every shadow. It is only a matter of time before they find us." Rin clenched his fists. "Not if we move first. Your ship is damaged, but maybe not beyond repair. If we can fix it enough to fly, we can escape before they lock onto us." Alira looked doubtful. "The systems are burned, the engines broken. You do not have the tools." Rin turned to her, his eyes firm. "Maybe not the right tools. But humans are good at making broken things work again. We improvise." She studied him for a long moment, then gave a small nod. "Very well. I will trust you." The hours that followed were filled with effort. Rin and Alira worked side by side, returning to the alien vessel. Rin carried his human equipment, patching cables with spare wires, using welding torches on strange metal. Alira guided him, explaining what each system once did. Sometimes the alien technology refused to answer his touch. But Rin would smile and try again, combining simple human tricks with her knowledge. Piece by piece, light flickered back to life. As they worked, Alira watched him closely. She had been raised among soldiers and nobles, people who spoke of strategy and honor. But Rin was different. He had no army, no throne, only determination and clever hands. Yet she felt a strange trust forming, deeper than she expected. Finally, the engines gave a low hum. The ship trembled with life. Rin wiped sweat from his forehead and grinned. "Told you we could make it work." Alira allowed herself a faint smile. "Perhaps humans are more stubborn than I believed." But the sensors were clear. The enemy patrols were still searching, drawing nearer. They had little time. As they returned to the outpost to gather supplies, Rin felt the weight of his choice. He could stay, hide, and maybe survive alone. Or he could flee with her into danger. He looked at Alira, standing tall despite her weariness, eyes filled with both sorrow and fire. He already knew his answer. Whatever storm was coming, he would not let her face it alone. The hum of the repaired engines echoed through the alien vessel. It was not steady, but it was alive, and that was enough. Rin stood at the controls, checking each reading carefully. The ship was weak, yet it could still fly. Alira moved beside him, her eyes sharp. "The patrols are closing in," she said. "They will sweep this sector in less than a day." Rin tapped the screen, showing the map of the nearby system. The enemy patrols were spreading out like a net, slow but certain. If they stayed, discovery was only a matter of time. "We need to get out before they reach this outpost," Rin said. Alira crossed her arms. "The moment we launch, they will detect us. Their ships are faster, stronger. We will not last long." Rin studied the screen for a long moment. Then his eyes moved to the planet below, the barren world wrapped in constant magnetic storms. An idea began to form. "What if we don't run from them?" Rin said slowly. "What if we run into the storms?" Alira turned her head sharply. "The storms are deadly. Lightning strong enough to tear metal apart, magnetic waves that crush navigation systems. Even my people avoid them." Rin smiled faintly. "Exactly. They'll never think we'd risk it. If we dive into the storm at the right angle, the interference will hide us from their scanners. By the time we come out the other side, they'll be chasing shadows. Alira frowned. That is not a plan. That is madness. Maybe, Rin admitted. But sometimes madness is the only thing that works. Humans survive because we take risks others won't. She stared at him for a long time, torn between doubt and the spark of hope his words carried. Finally, she sighed. Very well. If we are to die, let it be by our choice, not theirs. Rin nodded, feeling the weight of her trust. Then let's prepare. The hours before the launch were tense. Rin gathered supplies from the outpost: food packs, water, tools, anything that might help. Alira checked the ship's systems again and again, making sure the fragile engines would hold. When everything was ready, Rin stood one last time in the silent halls of his outpost. For years it had been his prison and his shelter. Now he was leaving it behind, perhaps forever. He felt no sadness, only a strange excitement. Life here had been empty. With Alira, every moment felt alive, even in danger. The ship rose from the outpost docking bay, its patched hull creaking under strain. Alira guided it smoothly, her hands steady on the controls. Rin sat beside her, watching the enemy patrols on the screen. They've spotted movement, Rin said as warning lights flashed. They'll be on us soon. Alira's jaw tightened. Then we go now. The vessel turned sharply and dove toward the planet below. The surface was already boiling with storms, clouds flashing with violent lightning. The closer they came, the louder the ship groaned. The enemy ships gave chase, their weapons glowing in the darkness. Beams of light streaked past, shaking the vessel with near hits. Hold it steady! Rin shouted, gripping his seat. Alira's eyes were cold with focus. If the storm destroys us, it will not matter how steady I hold it. The ship broke through the first layer of clouds. Instantly, the storm swallowed them. Lightning struck around them like falling spears. The magnetic waves made the screens flicker and distort. The engines howled. The enemy ships hesitated at the edge, their scanners confused by the storm's interference. A few dared to follow, but most stayed behind, afraid of the violent sky. Inside the storm, chaos ruled. Sparks flew as systems overloaded. Rin leapt from his seat, using tools to reroute power. Alira fought the controls as the ship was tossed like a leaf in the wind. Engines are losing balance. Rin shouted. Then balance them, she snapped back, though not in anger, only in desperate will to survive. Rin's hands moved quickly, patching wires, overriding safety locks. Sweat ran down his face, but he did not stop. Hold her steady just a little longer. Lightning slammed into the hull. The ship shook, but it held. Finally, after endless minutes of storm and chaos, the sensors cleared. The ship burst out of the storm's far side, battered but intact. Rin fell back into his seat, breathing hard. We made it, he whispered. Alira's hands shook as she released the controls, but her face carried a look of wonder. No one would have tried such a path, she said softly. Only a human could be so foolish, and so lucky. Rin gave her a tired grin. Not just luck. Sometimes, you have to trust the storm to hide you. They looked at each other in the quiet after the storm. Something had changed between them. They had faced death together and survived. But as Rin checked the scanners again, his relief dimmed. The storm had bought them time, but not safety. The enemy fleet was still searching the system, spreading wider. Their escape was not complete. We can't rest yet, Rin said. They'll still be looking for you. Alira nodded, her voice steady now. Then we keep moving. But know this, Rin, without you, I would already be dead. You risked everything when you did not have to. Rin met her gaze. Maybe I had nothing worth risking before. Now I do. Alira held his eyes for a long moment, and though she said nothing more, Her silence spoke louder than words. Together, they turned the ship toward the unknown stars, ready for the next danger that waited beyond. The storm was behind them, but the memory of its chaos still clung to the ship. Sparks had burned holes in the walls, and the engines rattled with each push. Yet the vessel moved forward, stubborn like the human who had brought it back to life. Rin sat at the console, checking the flickering screens. Alira stood beside him, silent for a long time. Her gaze was not on the stars outside but on Rin himself. "You should rest," Rin said without looking at her. "You've hardly slept since we left the outpost." Alira shook her head. "And you? You have worked twice as hard. Humans are not made for endless struggle." Rin gave a small laugh. "You'd be surprised what humans are made for." Her eyes softened, though she said nothing more. She moved to sit across from him, folding her hands neatly. For the first time since he had found her, she seemed less like a hunted princess and more like a woman simply trying to understand the person beside her. Days passed quietly as the ship drifted between stars. They had no clear path yet, only the goal of staying ahead of the enemy fleet. Supplies were limited, so Rin stretched every ration carefully. In the silence of space, they began to speak more. Rin told Alira about Earth, its blue oceans, green forests, and crowded cities. He described storms of rain instead of lightning, festivals where humans danced together, and the way people told stories around fires at night. Alira listened with quiet wonder. "Your world sounds alive," she said. "Not like the halls of Solar." They were beautiful, but always heavy with duty. Rin tilted his head. "You don't miss it?" Her eyes grew distant. "I miss the people. I miss the songs of my mother, the wisdom of my father, the laughter of my brothers. But the palace itself, it was a cage. I was not Alira there. I was only the crown." Rin looked at her with quiet sympathy. He had been alone for so long, yet in a way, she had been alone too, even in a palace full of voices. That night, Rin taught her something simple. From his old pack, he pulled a small wooden board carved with squares and tiny stones. "It's a game," he explained. "Humans play it to pass the time." Alira frowned at the board. "A game, in the middle of flight and danger." "Especially then," Rin said with a grin. "When things are hard, humans make games. It helps us keep our minds alive." She agreed to try. At first, her moves were clumsy, uncertain. But she learned quickly, watching how Rin set his stones, studying his tricks. Soon, her eyes sparkled with challenge, and for the first time, Rin heard her laugh, fully a sound rich and bright, breaking the heavy air of the ship. For Rin, that laugh was worth more than any victory. But peace never lasted long. One morning, alarms blared again. Rin hurried to the console. Enemy ships had been detected far off, moving through nearby systems. The fleet was growing larger, stretching like a net across space. "They're still searching for you," Rin said grimly. Alira's face grew cold. "They will not stop. To them, I am not a person. I am a threat. As long as I live, their empire fears rebellion." Rin clenched his fists. "Then they'll have to go through me first." She looked at him, startled by his fierce tone. "Rin, you cannot fight an empire alone." He met her gaze steadily. "Maybe not. But I won't let them take you. Not while I breathe." For a long moment, silence hung between them. Then Alira whispered, almost to herself, "You speak as if my life matters more than your own." Rin gave a half smile. "Maybe it does." Later, when the ship grew quiet again, Alira found herself unable to sleep. She stood by the viewing glass, staring at the endless stars. Rin joined her, carrying 2 cups of warm liquid from their dwindling supplies. He handed her one. "It's not much, but it's something." She sipped it carefully, surprised by the bitter taste but warmed by the gesture. "Rin," she said softly, "why do you care so much? You could have stayed in your outpost, safe and hidden. Instead, you follow me into danger." Rin looked out at the stars. "Because I was already dying there. Not my body, but everything inside me. The silence, it eats at you. Then you appeared. And suddenly, I had a reason to move again." Alira's throat tightened. She had always been seen as a symbol, never as herself. But Rin saw her as a person worth saving, even without her crown. She placed the cup down and met his eyes. "You may be reckless, Rin. But you are also, different from anyone I have known." Rin gave a quiet nod, unsure what to say. The moment stretched between them, fragile but strong, like a thread spun across the stars. The days ahead promised only more danger, yet in that silence, something had begun to grow. Not trust alone, not duty alone, but something deeper. They did not name it, not yet. But both felt it, a bond forming in the shadows of war, fragile but unbreakable. And though the enemy fleet drew closer with each passing day, neither Rin nor Alira felt as alone as before. The ship floated in silence, hidden between drifting rocks of an abandoned belt. Rin leaned over the console, scanning the stars. The enemy fleet was closing in again. Their signals spread across the system like hunters tightening a net. "They will find us soon," Alira said quietly. She stood behind him, her voice calm but heavy with worry. "There are too many. We cannot outrun them forever." Rin tapped the console, thinking quickly. His mind worked like gears, searching for an answer. Finally, his eyes lit up. "Maybe we don't have to outrun them." Alira frowned. "What do you mean?" Rin pointed to the map. "This belt is full of old satellites, mining equipment, and wreckage. If we use it right, we can turn it into a trap. They'll think we're just hiding here, but we'll make the field fight for us." Alira looked doubtful. "You speak as if broken machines could defeat warships." Rin smiled faintly. "Not defeat. Confuse. Delay. That's all we need to make them believe they've crushed us, while we slip away." She studied him, then slowly nodded. "Very well. Show me your plan." The next hours became a storm of work. Rin attached signal beacons to shattered satellites, making them broadcast false engine trails. He rigged broken fuel cells to explode when struck, turning dead metal into hidden mines. Alira helped, guiding him through parts of the wreckage, her hands steady even when the cold void pressed close. She had never done such crude work before, tying wires with bare gloves, welding broken panels, but she followed Rin's lead without complaint. At last, the trap was ready. The belt was no longer just floating debris. It was a maze, alive with tricks. Rin wiped the sweat from his brow and looked at her. "Now, all we do is wait." The wait did not last long. Soon, enemy ships entered the belt, their dark hulls moving like wolves among shadows. Rin and Alira sat quietly in the cockpit, hidden deep in a cluster of rocks. The first enemy ship caught one of the false signals and turned toward it. As it fired, the wreckage exploded with sudden flame, tearing holes in its armor. Another ship struck a fuel cell and burst apart in a chain of light. Confusion spread through the enemy fleet as their scanners filled with false trails. "They are firing at shadows," Alira whispered in wonder. Rin grinned. "Exactly the idea." But the enemy were not fools. They adjusted quickly, closing ranks, moving with more caution. Their leader's ship scanned deeper, its powerful beam sweeping closer to Rin's vessel. "They'll find us soon," Rin said grimly. Alira's eyes narrowed. "Then we must strike first." Rin glanced at her. He had expected her to fear, but instead, he saw fire in her gaze. She was not just a fleeing princess anymore, she was ready to stand. The moment came quickly. The leader's ship approached, its weapons glowing. Rin pulled the vessel from hiding and charged forward. Alira gripped the controls beside him, guiding the ship through the narrow rocks. Enemy fire streaked past, shaking the hull. Rin triggered the hidden mines, explosions bursting behind them, breaking the fleet's formation. The leader's ship loomed ahead. Rin aimed for its side, where armor was weakest. Now, he shouted. Alira fired the ship's remaining weapons. Energy beams struck true, slicing across the enemy hull. The larger vessel staggered, sparks flaring from its side. But victory came with a price. A blast from the enemy struck their ship, throwing Rin across the cabin. He hit the floor hard, his vision swimming. Pain seared his side. Rin! Alira cried, rushing to him. She pulled him back to his seat, her hands trembling. Stay with me. Rin forced his eyes open, blood pounding in his ears. Don't stop, finish it, Alira clenched her jaw. Her hands gripped the controls with fierce strength. She dodged through wreckage, turned the ship sharply, and unleashed another barrage at the enemy leader. The strike hit deep. The massive ship shuddered, fire spreading across its hull. Then, with a final burst, it tore apart in silence, pieces scattering into the belt. The remaining enemy ships, seeing their leader destroyed, broke formation. Some fled. Others fell back into the shadows, unwilling to press further. Alira guided the ship into cover again, her breaths heavy. For a long moment, the stars were quiet. Rin stirred, pain still burning through him. Did we do it? Alira turned to him, her eyes wet with relief. Yes. You saved us. Your plan saved us. He tried to smile, though his body trembled. Told you, humans are good at tricks. Alira pressed her hand against his shoulder, steadying him. Her heart raced, not just from battle but from the thought of losing him. She had lost her family, her people, her world, but the idea of losing Rin had struck her with a fear sharper than any blade. You risked everything, she whispered. For me. Rin looked at her, his voice faint but certain. I'd do it again. The belt was still dangerous, but for now, they had won. The enemy had been scattered, their leader destroyed. For the first time, Alira felt that survival was more than just running, it was fighting, side by side with someone who refused to give up. She looked at Rin, weak but alive, and a quiet truth stirred in her chest. He was no soldier, no prince, no noble of her world. He was just human. Yet somehow, he was more than all of them. And though the war was far from over, Alira knew one thing with certainty. She would never again face it alone. The enemy fleet had been scattered, but the stars beyond were still vast and uncertain. Rin leaned against the side of the cockpit, nursing a bruise across his ribs. His breaths were slow, steadying himself after the battle. Alira sat across from him, cleaning minor damage to the ship with careful hands. Her eyes kept glancing at him, a quiet worry written on her face. She had fought alongside him, planned with him, survived beside him, but she had never truly seen the human courage that had guided them. Not until now. Rin, she said softly, breaking the silence, you have done more than any soldier I know. You risked your life, for me. Rin shook his head, wincing slightly. It wasn't just for you. He paused, looking out at the endless stars. I don't know how to explain it. You changed something inside me. Suddenly, I had a reason to move, to fight, to survive. Before, I was just drifting. Alone. Waiting for something to matter. Alira looked down at her hands, silent for a moment. Then she whispered, you make humans sound more than you are. Rin chuckled softly. Maybe. Or maybe humans just wait for someone worth caring about. He turned to her, meeting her gaze with eyes full of quiet intensity. Alira, there's something I need to say. Something I've felt since the day I found you. Her brow lifted slightly. What is it? He swallowed, feeling the weight of every star and every danger they had survived together. I love you, he said, his voice low but steady. For a moment, silence filled the cockpit. The stars outside seemed to hold their breath. Rin's heart pounded, unsure of what he would hear. Alira stared at him, her hands frozen on the tools she had been holding. Then, slowly, a smile touched her lips. Not a smile of surprise, or disbelief, but one of quiet relief, of long-awaited joy. At last, she whispered, her voice soft, yet filled with warmth. I have waited for you to say that. Rin blinked, stunned. You knew. Her eyes shone in the dim light of the cockpit. Yes. I felt it from the moment you touched my life. But I waited for you to speak it aloud. I wanted you to choose me, not out of obligation, but because your heart told you so. Rin felt a warmth spread through his chest that no star or fire could match. He reached for her hand, gently taking it in his own. I didn't think. I didn't know if you felt the same. I was afraid it might be only me. Alira's fingers curled around his. Rin, it was never only you. I have watched you, I have trusted you, and in the quiet of these stars, I realized. I have already chosen you. For the first time, Rin allowed himself to relax completely. The battles, the storms, the endless fear, all of it seemed to fade away. In that small cockpit, surrounded by the void, the universe felt almost gentle. They sat in silence for a while, holding hands, letting the simple truth sink in. Words were no longer necessary. They had shared fire and danger, laughter and fear. Now, they shared something even stronger, love born in the middle of chaos, solid and unshakable. Finally, Rin spoke again, his voice soft. I don't know what the future holds. There will still be dangers, still enemies. But, if I am with you, I will face them all. Alira leaned slightly against him, her head brushing his shoulder. And I will stand with you. No matter what comes, we face it together. Rin's heart swelled. He had never felt this sure of anything in his life. Then we are partners, he said with a small grin. Not just in survival, but everything. Alira laughed softly, a sound that warmed even the cold void outside. Partners, she agreed. I like that. For the rest of the night, they sat together, talking quietly of stars, of worlds they had seen, and of the dreams they hoped to reach. Danger was still out there, waiting, but the fear felt smaller now. They had each other, and that made them stronger than any fleet, any storm, or any empire that could come. As Rin watched Alira finally rest against him, her eyes closed in quiet peace, he realized something simple yet profound. Humans were small, fragile creatures in the vast universe, but love, loyalty, and courage could make them monumental. And in this moment, under the endless stars, Rin knew they were no longer just two beings trying to survive. They were a force together, bound not by fear, but by choice, trust, and the love that had grown quietly, fiercely, between them. Outside, the galaxy spun in silence. Inside, two hearts beat in unison. The war was not over. The storms were not gone. But for the first time, Rin and Alira faced the future with certainty, not because they would win every battle, but because they had each other. And sometimes, that was enough. The stars outside the ship were calm now, the chaos of the enemy fleet far behind. Rin and Alira had navigated through countless dangers, and finally, a distant system appeared on the scanner, an uninhabited planet with quiet oceans, green plains, and mountains that reached into thin clouds. This place, Alira whispered, her voice full of awe. It is beautiful. Safe. Perhaps, finally, a new beginning. Rin nodded, feeling a quiet relief settle over him. The planet below was untouched by war, untouched by fear. For the first time in months, he allowed himself to imagine life beyond survival. They guided the ship carefully through the atmosphere. The vessel, patched and scarred from battles and storms, shivered as it passed through clouds, but it held steady. Alira's hands moved confidently on the controls, her earlier doubts replaced by focus and trust. As they landed on a smooth, wide plain near a sparkling river, the engines hummed their final note and powered down. Silence filled the ship, different from the tension of space. This silence was soft, comforting, and alive with possibilities. Ren opened the cockpit and stepped onto the warm ground first, breathing the fresh air deeply. The scent of grass and water filled him with a feeling he had almost forgotten. He turned to Alira, who emerged behind him, her eyes wide with wonder. "It smells alive," she said softly. "Not like the halls I knew, or the cold of ships. This is life." Ren offered his hand. "Then let's start ours here." Alira took it, a smile touching her lips, a smile that had survived storms, enemies, and fear. Together, they walked away from the ship, each step leaving the past behind. Over the next days, they explored the planet. Small forests, clear rivers, and gentle hills stretched as far as the eye could see. Rin helped Alira understand simple survival tools, gathering fruit, finding fresh water, and building temporary shelters from natural materials. Alira, in turn, shared her knowledge of alien engineering, helping Rin improve small devices they carried. Even broken machines could find a new purpose here. Their collaboration was quiet but strong, each learning from the other, growing closer with every shared effort. At night, they would sit by the river and watch the stars. No alarms, no warnings, no threats, only the soft hum of life around them. Ren sometimes told stories of Earth, its cities, festivals, and mountains. Alira shared memories of her family, of palace gardens and hidden libraries. And in those moments, their bond grew deeper. They laughed, shared, and sometimes just sat in silence, holding hands, letting the calm of the planet sink into their bones. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the mountains, Ren turned to Alira. "We've survived storms, wars, and fear," he said softly. "And yet, here we are. Safe, at last. But I want more than just survival. I want life with you." Alira looked at him, her eyes reflecting the silver light of the moons. "I thought you already knew," she said, her voice warm. "I have chosen you. Not just to survive, but to walk through this life together." Ren smiled, feeling a weight lift from him. "Then we start anew. Not as a princess and a human, not as hunted and rescuer, but as ourselves. Together." Alira reached out, brushing her hand against his cheek. "Together," she agreed. The gentle breeze carried their words into the night. The planet around them seemed to breathe with life, as if welcoming them, offering a chance to begin again without fear. In the days that followed, Ren and Alira built a small home near the river, using stones, wood, and simple structures. They planted gardens, fished from the river, and explored the forests nearby. Every day, the bond between them strengthened not through words alone, but through shared effort, trust, and laughter. Alira sometimes paused to watch Ren work, noticing how human ingenuity could turn the simplest tools into solutions. Ren often looked at her in quiet admiration, seeing not only a princess but a strong, capable, and compassionate companion. It was not perfection. Storms sometimes came, rivers sometimes flooded, and the ship needed repairs. But for the first time, challenges felt surmountable. They faced them together. And every evening, as the twin moons rose, they would sit side by side, watching the stars, grateful for the journey that had brought them here. Ren took her hand, leaning close. "We made it, Alira. Against all odds, we made it." Alira smiled, resting her head lightly on his shoulder. "Yes, together. And now, we live. Truly live. The stars above shone quietly, and the planet below whispered life. A new dawn had come, not only for them but for hope itself. And in that stillness, Rin and Alira finally understood, they were no longer running. They were free. And they would face whatever came next side by side, hearts aligned, in a universe that now felt like home.